Aastha, and I am the organizing manager at the Teen Debater. And today I will be taking a skill session on rebuttals, named as the Rebuttal Masterclass, which will teach you how to build your rebuttal skills, which can strengthen your debate abilities. So let's get started. So before starting the session, I would like to talk about a little about the Teen Debater. So at heart, our mission is the belief that debate is not just an academic exercise, but a vital life skill that fosters analytical thinking, effective communication, and deeper understanding of the world's complexities. We do this through debating, and that's why we conduct these sessions. We conduct daily debates at 8 p.m. You can join in if you want to practice your debate skills, because we genuinely think that it fosters analytical thinking, effective communication, and deeper understandings of the world. And these are the publications that we have been mentioned on in the past. So without further ado, let's get into the topic. Okay, so in this session, we'll talk about what are rebuttals, a classic method to use while doing the rebuttals, and some main mistakes or some weak arguments that are presented during rebuttals, and what is the power of evidence in the rebuttals, which will strengthen your rebuttal skills. One of the main reasons why this session is important, because some of our students, they basically are weak at rebuttals sometimes. So this is basically a beginner session in a way, which will explain you how to do a rebuttal, why we do it, and how to strengthen your position in a debate through rebuttals, which is one of the most crucial parts in a debate. So let's get into it. So before going into how to strengthen your rebuttals, we need to understand what is a rebuttal. So a rebuttal is when you challenge, criticize, or find fault with your opponent's argument with reason. You must explain why the argument is flawed. So basically, after an opponent states its key points of their debate and whatever their main key points are, and you also do the same, there is a rebuttal round where you have to challenge some of their key points. You have to find their weaknesses in those key points, and you have to respond it with a reason of why you think that's a weakness, which can strengthen your debating abilities. And you have to explain the why the argument is flawed. Now, why do we do rebuttals in the first place anyway? Without a rebuttal, the debate is just a series of performances. Now, what I mean by the series of performances is that there is no questioning, which basically, what is the point of debating without questioning? Because basically, a point of debate is to have advantages and disadvantages and come up with a productive, analytical, and innovative conversation that is engaging. That is the whole point of debate. If you don't question those key points and ask evidence for it, what is even the point of debating? And that's why rebuttal is a very crucial role in debating. And good rebuttals often use logic, evidence, and clear reasoning. I will touch upon that a little later. Now, now that we have understood what are rebuttals in the first place, we need to know what is the crash method. So basically, crash is a term given to addressing and refuting another debater's argument. Refuting basically means finding fault or finding weaknesses in your opponent's argument. Without clash, there isn't any debate. Debaters must clash directly and specifically to their opponent's argument. Basically, you take a key point from your opponent that they have mentioned, you address it directly, and then you mention a specific problem that you see with it and provide evidence for it later. That is the crash method usually. This also is very important because it saves you time and it presents your point in a clear and a concise way. So there are three components of the crash method. The first is challenge, the second is logic, and the third is alternative. Challenge. Identify the opponent's key point. What are they saying? Whatever the key points is, what do they mean by it? What do they mean by it, not you? You shouldn't misinterpret or interpret in your own way. You should always listen to what are they mentioning. The second is explain why it is flawed. Why is it wrong? Why do you think that argument is wrong? What is the weakness? What are the faults? What are some of the evidence? Maybe it's the evidence problem. Maybe the evidence wasn't right, something like that. Why do you think they are wrong and their key point is wrong in some ways? The third is alternative. Provide a stronger counter argument. To justify why do you think it's wrong, you have to provide like a better alternative rather than the key point that your opponent mentioned to you. So ask yourself, what's the better argument for this topic? Now, for example, if your opponent's key point is homework should be banned because students are too stressed, your rebuttal will be first, challenge. Not all homework causes stress. Apply logic to it. Study shows moderate homework improves learning, and provide an alternative to it. Instead of banning, reduce workload or improve support. Now, these are basically some of the key points that are of the crash. And if you apply this to your rebuttals, it will really strengthen your debate game and it will probably make your position better in a debate. Now that we have covered the crash method, we need to notice some common weak arguments and how to rebut them. So the first one is slippery slope. A slippery slope fallacy is an argument that claims an initial event or action will trigger a series of other events and lead to an extreme or undesirable outcome. For example, if I present a key point of this is very lame, but if I present a key point of if we eat fast food, soon we will be in hospital. Initial event fast food, according to me, will trigger an extreme outcome. That is not what you should be mentioning in your rebuttals or in your debate anyways. You shouldn't jump to conclusions without even explaining why do you think that. A slippery slope fallacy anticipates this chain of events without offering any evidence to substantiate the claim. I didn't provide you with any evidence of why do I think fast food will get me in the hospital. So it is a very weak argument to do in a rebuttal or in debate, both of them. The second problem is straw man fallacy, misrepresenting the opponent's argument. For example, if I'm in a debate with another person and I make a point in my opening statement, and later they are rebutting against it, and they misinterpret my original point, I can respond back with clarifying my point and explaining it better and pointing out the opponent's mistake. That is the straw man's fallacy, which is misrepresenting your opponent's point or argument. You can rebuttal by clarify what was actually said and respond to that. The third is false dilemma. It's either this or disaster, which is basically only two options given. There can be a lot of factors affecting your topic, but you only give two options. If you do this, or it will be a disaster, basically. So how to rebuttal against this is there are usually more than two options or other factors affecting X. This will provide you with a more logical explanation rather than a more emotional explanation in your debate, and will strengthen your position as a debater in that debate. Now, as we have looked at some of the common weak arguments and how do we rebut them, we're moving on to the power of evidence. Evidence is one of the most crucial parts of debates and rebuttals mainly, because it can provide you with a lot of insight and a lot of logical explanation for your arguments. So that's why even in a rebuttal, you have to be skilled in providing a relevant argument to your debate, providing a relevant evidence to your argument. So strong rebuttals rely on facts and statistics from credible sources. So some of the credible sources mentioned are like Google Scholar, Statistica, or you can visit some government websites which probably have more reliable evidence than others, or the UN reports, you can read that as well. Logical reasoning. Provide a logical, as I mentioned before, provide a logical reasoning rather than an emotional reasoning, which is basically linking back your evidence to your point of why do you think your point makes sense, basically. Always link it back to a logical point rather than an emotional point. Take a use of real world examples. Use case studies or news that is relevant. You can read case studies, or you can also mention some current affairs that are happening at the moment to mention or make your point more relevant in these times, which can strengthen your argument. Now that we know the power of evidence, always use that in your rebuttals, no matter what, and use relevant statistics, facts, examples, evidence, basically, because sometimes people just use irrelevant statistics, which kind of make no sense, and also explain that evidence and why do you think that evidence is relevant to your argument. Okay. Now, rebuttals, you have to think fast, and it's always something you can't mostly anticipate what the other person's going to ask you. So, how to build rebuttals fast? When responding quickly, remember, listen carefully to the argument. Again, don't misinterpret it. Listen to the argument that is made by your opponent, not something that you made up in your head. Listen to the argument, note it down, or remember it. Then find the weakness, any assumptions that they have made, lack of evidence, exaggerations, or any of the weak argument that I mentioned before. If they have mentioned any of that in their argument, you notice that and you find that first. And then respond back with a short and structured response. Make your point clear, provide evidence for it, explain why do you think that evidence is relevant, and then link it back to your point again of why do you think the other person's argument is faulty, which will provide you a very concise and clear point to your mediator for the rebuttal. So, before ending this session, here are some final tips that will help you. Stay calm and focused. While doing your rebuttals, sometimes if you cannot come up with anything, it can be very frustrating. So you have to be calm and focused. And that will definitely come with practicing daily debates all the time. Use logic, not emotion. Again, use logic. Even while explaining your evidence, explain it logically. Explain it while linking back and make it relevant to your point. Always have a backup argument. For example, if your rebuttal doesn't succeed or you think that it's not strong enough, have a backup argument that you can always make. This is a very important tip. And in the end, the main thing to do is basically just keep practicing. You can also practice on the daily debater that we host at 8 p.m. You can practice there. Then you can follow us on all of our social medias. We are on Discord, we are on Instagram, we're on YouTube. You can also find our website. You can listen to our podcasts, and for more interesting